All right, we're gonna do kind of verbal audio only chat right now. I wanted to talk a little bit about the reopening of the government after the shutdown and really what the strategies will be going forward. And I want to give kind of a spoiler. The strategy for the Democrats is a little harder than it is for Donald Trump, believe it or not. And I'll have to explain why by talking about the roles of each person in the process. So of course we have two chambers of Congress, and the Republicans control one of them. That would be the Senate, and they need 60 votes in order to pass any spending bill or to end debate on a spending bill. The Democrats control the other house, the House of Representatives, and they just need a simple majority in order to pass a spending bill. So essentially, the failure of a negotiation process by necessity would fall onto the hands of the people that have more hands and more switches, okay? So think about it this way: if I'm your opponent and I'm the person that's negotiating with you, and I have my hand on one lever and you have your hand on two levers, and in order to get it to work, all three levers have to fall, then of course you have a little more responsibility than I do. And therefore, the levers are as follows. The Senate needs 60 votes, and they need the Democrats to supply at least 7 votes in order for that to happen. So the Senate is technically at the mercy of those 7 Democrats that need to cross over and vote for whatever spending bill you're talking about. In the House, you also have the levers are in the hands of the Democrats, and then the final lever would be Donald Trump, the president. He has to sign the bill in order for it to become law. Of course, if a bill, any bill whatsoever, was to be challenged by somebody in the courts, that would throw the Supreme Court into it, which in this case I don't think that this would be an applicable case, because it's a lawful bill signed through by the president that was approved by both houses of Congress, and none of the things being debated for this spending bill are unconstitutional. So what's going on here? You have, I was just listening to a radio show, the Jay Secular show, because that's the only thing I can get on this radio while I'm in my car. And they were talking about the process. There's 17 members of Congress, both from the Senate and the House, from both parties. They're going to be hammering out a deal, and that deal will probably have to include the following in order to get all 3 levers to fall. You're going to have funding for the wall, waiver on enforcement of deportations with DACA. So there would be DACA protection for 3 more years is the number that's usually being bandied about by the media. And apparently you need some sort of other pathway to citizenship that people are asking for. So essentially you're talking about the wall for DACA, and now there's a negotiation process, and part of the negotiation process includes consultations with all of these Homeland Security people that would be giving their recommendations as far as the measures that they want in order to secure the border and maintain national security, to secure the immigration system. And as of right now, most of those experts within the system do recommend building a wall along some parts of the border, as Donald Trump is talking about. So the Democrats, if this is on the record, I don't know if all of these consultations will be on the record. So if this is on the record and the Democrats refuse to fund the wall for whatever reason, then some of their opponents can probably go to the campaign in 2020, the congressional campaigns, and say, look, this representative has voted against Homeland Security's recommendations for securing the border. And they, in some of these districts, some of these swing districts, especially, in states like Kansas and in Virginia. I'm talking about swing districts. Okay, so some of these districts, believe it or not, in some red states and blue states, there are swing districts. You're going to have some people losing votes because their opponent will just say, well, they voted against this Homeland Security appropriations. That's a hot topic. Okay, it just is. Some of these Democratic politicians in the House especially are probably going to be pressuring Nancy Pelosi to present the bill for a vote so they can at least symbolically vote in favor of this bill. So it's possible that the Democrats in the House will pass a spending bill that will pretty much give Donald Trump the wall funding in order to earn DACA. Okay? That's a possibility. But you're not in the clear yet because you still need 60 votes in the Senate. So that's where the next game comes, okay? Now that Nancy Pelosi, if this happens, if the House does pass a spending bill that includes wall funding, you have to take into consideration that the Senate can just deadlock and you won't have 60 votes. And basically, we'll be back to square one, and I guess we'll have to go to a national emergency. At that point, the pressure starts to build on some of these Democratic senators and politicians like Schumer and Bob Menendez and Dick Durbin or whatever. And people will ask them, the fact is that a Democratic House passed this bill, and you guys did not. So what's the deal here? We have to fight over the government constantly. These are things that a number of Democratic politicians voted for, but you basically don't want to concede this, and there will probably be a couple Democrats that will join in, such as Joe Manchin, possibly, if you really think about it, John Tester and Doug Jones. They may have to bite the bullet and vote for that spending bill. I can definitely see Doug Jones because he is, in his specific case, he's running in 2020 for re-election. So he's from Alabama, and of course Alabama is one of the most hardline pro-wall states. It's Alabama. It's not New Jersey. So there's going to be a lot of, ammunition that can be fed into Trump's public relations campaign in the future, should he not get the funding for the wall from Congress, because he can point to a huge cross-section of the Democratic Party that are towards the center that will have voted for the wall, yet there is no wall funding. And he'll go and say to the leadership, look, you guys are leading a party that's just drifting all the way to the right. And I'll tell you why this is important, okay? If you oppose the wall or if you support the wall, it doesn't matter at this point, because this is just strategy talk. It has nothing to do with whether it's right or wrong. I'm just talking strategy at the moment. Early in his term, Barack Obama, of course, he proposed a number of policy positions, and of course, a lot of them got shot down. Not just by the Republicans. Some of them got shot down by Pelosi and Schumer as well. So, what happened in 2010? There was a huge red wave, I guess you would call it. They didn't call it at the time, but there was the Tea Party election, where basically, I believe that was the second worst result for a ruling party in a midterm election after 1994, when Bill Clinton completely lost both houses of Congress to the Republicans. So essentially, what we're talking about here is that the Republican Party is now in the opposite position. They've given up the House, but now the House is run by unreasonable people, because after 2010, people thought, well, Barack Obama is handcuffed. The Congress is basically going to destroy everything that he's worked for. Well, in a certain sense, it's in terms of legislation and work, that's not inaccurate. But in terms of public opinion, it's not as if public opinion of Congress increased after that. In fact, you can make the case that since that election, and possibly even before that, public opinion in Congress had been steadily going down. So nobody's going to be giving kudos to Nancy Pelosi and her Congress and everything. There's people who virtue signal about that. Yesterday I saw, or maybe it was 2 days ago, I saw this woman from Chicago trying to make a case. Oh, Nancy Pelosi, she's my hero, whatever. Look at all the things she's accomplished. And not a single person who was commenting agreed with her. And these were all card-carrying liberals. Now, they weren't disagreeing with her and hating on Pelosi because they're Trump supporters. They were disagreeing because the fact is that she is a failure. And it's the same type of image that came over John Boehner when he took over Congress under Obama. And you can ask even the most diehard Republican or the most corporate Republican or whoever you want to ask. Almost nobody was a fan of John Boehner during the Obama administration because there was, I mean, what was he going to do? All he could do was say no. All he could do was bitch. And that was kind of his job. I mean, nothing you can do about that. But the fact is that Congress under John Boehner got virtually nothing done. And under Nancy Pelosi and I guess Mitch McConnell, because it takes two to tango, but under this divided Congress, there's not much that's going to be getting done. So you're going to have a lot of dissatisfaction. You're going to probably see the Democrats lose a few House seats in 2020. No matter what the outcome of the presidential election is. That's kind of what happened in 2012. The Republicans lost a few House seats, and their majority kind of shrunk. If it gets worse, and now I think in this case, the atmosphere is worse between Pelosi and Trump. I think it's much less civil than it was between between Boehner and Obama, because the fact is that Boehner and Obama used to do the stupid thing where they go play golf together and talk about bipartisanship and cooperation. That's not going to happen with Pelosi and Trump. They're simply, it was hard enough to have them get in the same room with each other and talk about things together that one time that Trump basically brought in the cameras in Congress. So yeah, I think it's going to really hurt the image of the Democrats in Congress, and for some of these centrist Democrats, for example, I think one is Ben McDonald in Utah. So he's the guy who got elected in 2018 to defeated Mia Love. So a lot of these centrist voters who ended up, and many of them are just Republicans that are kind of, they don't know what the fuck they want. They're going to swing back because nothing's getting done. If you're a results-oriented voter, then the Democratic members of the House that just got elected, they are afraid of you. Okay, they're not afraid of the person who votes reflexively, will vote 100% for the Republican or 100% for the Democrat. They're afraid of the swing voter. And in every district, including in a district like Utah, I don't remember which Utah district it is, but that district, in many of these districts around the country, there are a lot of swing voters. I don't know why they're swing voters. I think oftentimes the choice should be either you know which party you support, or you're not going to go vote. Okay, or maybe you vote for a third party. In some of these statewide elections, for example, last year, I voted for the Libertarian because. And I probably should have voted for the governor in the governor's race for the Libertarian, but I didn't. So, I think that Nancy Pelosi is going to be in a very difficult position in terms of how she's going to manage her caucus, the House caucus, the Democrats, and you're going to see a lot of fracturing between these Democrats that do want to keep these swing voters and secure their majority for 2020. They don't want to give up the House in 2020. They don't want to have to give up committee chairmanships or whatever. So, they're in a pickle, okay? They're in a pickle just as much. I hate to use that phrase, but they're in a conundrum with respect to that. Just like, Trump has to worry about getting elected too, but he has much more fundraising power. He has much more of a podium. A lot of these people, nobody gives a shit what their names are. These people, you have to understand, it's not odd that a congressman will serve only one term because they're so busy trying to find a place for themselves in DC that they don't have time to go back and campaign. They don't have time to go back and raise money. Meanwhile, in their district, a better funded opponent starts to gain ground and campaign earlier and whatever. It becomes a real problem. And I'm not even talking about Republican or Democrat here. It's a real problem if you're a freshman congressman to be able to establish yourself and work on getting reelected. So that's about it. I think I'll try and do another one of these sometime this week, because sometimes it's better than just listening to the radio in the car. So that's about it. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, also share the video, subscribe to me on my second channel, Razor Ray Special Cuts, and on BitChute and CocoScope. And you can also see me on all the social media in the description. I'll talk to you guys later.